Hopefully I'm in focus this time. That'd be good, wouldn't it? So, part 3, Jason and the Argonauts, finally getting to it. So do we remember the build-up at least a little bit? There's a golden fleece, it's in Colchis.
He had one shoe.
Jason had one shoe, exactly. Then in part 2, we covered the bit where Jason lost his shoe. Hera was in disguise as an old woman. She wanted him to go be a hero and get rid of Peleus, who's the king, who's a baddie, and Hera doesn't like him. Peleus knows that he's one day gonna die at the hands of basically Jason. And I'm so sorry I've caused you this pain.
You haven't caused me pain. I'm sorry you had to
Raven's
see
got a coffee and a pastry and she can't eat and drink.
I like how she's got the cup and she's holding the plate and just hold the donut. Just hold the donut.
I think Reese is right that the plate is the ultimate
It's what's defeating your plan.
problem.
I don't want to drop the cream.
You keep shoving not cutlery, what's it called?
I don't know what. Crockery? Crockery? Is it called crockery?
Crockery!
Hey! She solved it like those puzzles that you do at school camp where you have to rebuild the pile of tires. You know the one.
Ooh.
Well, Peleus is a bad guy. He knows that Jason's gonna kill him, basically, and so he sends Jason on an impossible mission to go and get the Golden Fleece from Colchis. So, Jason gathered all the greatest heroes of the age, and he puts them all together on a ship that is also psychic, and they set sail.
A freaking psychic.
Yeah, you look confused. The ship is psychic. Athena went to this like magic grove of trees and cut down one of the trees and made a bit of wood for them to use on the ship, and so now the ship is psychic and can talk and stuff. They set off on this journey. This is part 3. We're here. My favorite thing to start this story is that it's clearly one of those moments where they've tried to shove Heracles in after the fact because they loved Heracles so much. So he's like present, but also they have to keep finding excuses for why he doesn't do that much. So some people even are like, Heracles was one of the Argonauts, but they left him behind before they even left. And my favorite bit about it is that the reasoning is some people say that he was too clumsy and kept breaking oars, and other people
The oars.
Yeah.
Anything but the oars.
Yeah, and other people say that the oracular plank of wood on the ship was like, yo, do not bring Heracles, guy too fat.
Psychically
Yeah, it's like
as Hercules steps on it and it's just like
Who sunk the boat?
it's so true. It's like
Get
he
him off,
weighs
get him
too
off, get him
much.
off.
He weighs too much. I'm not going anywhere with this guy on.
He's too small.
On board. But in a lot of Heraclastic versions of the story, he does come along for a little bit longer, even though he's in the middle of his labors. There's a lot of reasons Heracles should not be in this story. The first place they stop off is the island of Lemnos, which famously was inhabited solely by women. But this was because they'd ticked off Aphrodite at some point, and so she cursed them all to smell really bad. And so none of their husbands would sleep with them because they smelled really bad. And mythology is very serious.
So they're just like a leper colony, but because they smell really bad.
Yeah, but they all decided they were so angry about it that they would all, in one night, in one like Black Ops strike, kill all the men on the island.
What? Why not just I don't know, remove their sense of smell or something?
Ooh! Hercules is the nose docker.
It's just
He cuts off people's noses.
They'll just like, we could make them uglier or we could just kill them.
Yeah.
And remember them as they
If
were.
they'd just waited a couple months longer, Heracles would have been there. They could have set up a deal. Everything
It's
would have
just-
been fine. They'd kill all these people except for one woman whose name was, I have a bunch of names written on my hand because there's a lot of people in this story. Hypsipyle, which is my favorite name.
Hypsipyle.
Princess Hypsipyle of the island of
So
Lemnos.
they left the princess of the entire dead island alive. Oh, no,
No,
it's only the
she's a
men.
girl, yeah.
Okay.
But she saved her dad. And this isn't like important to the story, but I think it's very interesting in terms of like the broader mythology, like the tropes that are built up in mythology, so I'm telling you anyway. She saves her dad, the king of the island. He's the only man to survive the
The lady Carl.
Lady Carl, because she secrets him into a chest and sends him out to sea in a chest, which is interesting because that happens to like a half dozen women throughout mythology, and this is the only time I've seen it happen to a guy.
And a baby.
Yeah. And it's
baby
usually
boy.
it's usually the king putting his daughter and her, illegitimate godchild into a chest and sending them out to sea.
Of course,
or
that
variations
happens a lot.
on that. Yeah, exactly. So it's variations on that usually, but this time it's the daughter sending her dad into. I just think it's interesting. The women see the boat arriving and they're all like, grab their pitchforks and like charge down to fight them on the beaches. But at the last minute, Hypsipyle, who's still in charge, I guess, is like, hey dudes, what if we just don't and instead they can sleep with us, because that was where this all started. And so all the Argonauts are like,
Did the Argonauts not have noses?
it doesn't say!
I thought you were about to say they charged and eat by the wall
The
of
stench,
smell.
no.
But okay, so it got so bad that the ones they were married to wouldn't sleep.
Yeah.
But these random people
Yeah.
on a boat were just like,
But
It's Greek heroes for
maybe
you.
everything just smells like fish to them anyway by this point.
Maybe. I mean, maybe
Just
they
like-
smell really bad, so they didn't notice.
Yeah.
They've been on a
It's
boat
too bad
for
smells
all of
people
a
don't
week,
know that
but
smell.
it doesn't say anything about the women
They-
smelling anymore.
they-
It just says the Argonauts were like, yeah, we'll sleep with you, sure.
It's so romantic.
And then they stay there for a year, just having sex. They've just started the journey and they stay there for a
Well-
full year.
yeah, they need to help these poor people.
Do you know who I feel most sad for?
What, who?
The boat. The psychic boat. It's clearly got enough thought power and it has to wait there docked.
Oh, well, let me tell you.
People.
Guess who stayed on this ship like someone's, like, surly teen son, waiting while everyone else did the errands? Heracles. He stayed on the boat. He's like, don't worry guys, I'll wait here for you. And then they just didn't come back for a year. And he finally is like, guys, can we please leave? And so they do, finally. And then where do they go next? They go to Kyzikos, which is just a friendly place. Nothing really bad happens there
That's
until
right.
no, they have a
okay, never
feast
mind.
and then they climb a mountain the next day so that they can see where they have to go. They're like, let's look over the ocean and find out where we're going. They climb this mountain and then they look down and they see a bunch of 6-armed giants attacking the boat. Because they live on the mountain and they've taken this opportunity while all the heroes are up the mountain to go and just launch an assault against the Argo. But thankfully, guess who's on the boat? Heracles is on the boat because he never leaves the boat.
Like, did they just add that in to be like, Hercules did something?
Yeah, exactly. And so Heracles happens to have his arrows, which tipped with the poison of Hydra blood, and so he takes down all the giants, or most of the giants, while the Argonauts are like, and running back down the hill, just tumbling down.
Can't a couple of them fly?
Oh yeah, the Boreads, the sons of Boreas, the North Wind. Good memory.
I'm on top of things.
When they're leaving the island with the giants and the nice people, there's like this huge gust of wind that blows them back in the middle of the night, but they don't realize that they've been blown back. They think they've landed on a new island, and the inhabitants of the island, who are their friends, don't recognize them in the night, so start fighting them, and they're all fighting and like killing each other, and Jason kills the king, who was their friend, and then the sun rises and they're like, ooh.
Don't fight in the dark!
Right? And it's like, oh no, what have we done? But then they just leave. But then they go somewhere else, and while they're there, Heracles has left the boat and wandered off from the group.
I would too if I was you.
He was getting wood to replace an oar that he broke.
What is he doing? Has no one explained to him how it works?
He rows too hard and breaks it with his immense
Hercules just on
strength.
one side and everyone else on the other?
I hope so, because
that must be the case. You disgust me.
he's so strong.
The boat just goes around in circles.
So he broke an oar, so he's off trying to find wood that'll make a good oar, and wandering off also is Hylas, who is like Heracles' favorite person. You know how he goes through a bunch of different favorite like assistants who are also kind of his boy toys? He's also wandered off in a different direction, and while he's searching for water, he finds a spring to draw water from, but because he's so young and youthful and beautiful, the nymph of the spring falls in love with him, and as he's leaning over to get water in his pail, she like grabs him and takes him underwater and just kidnaps him and like makes him her bride, and everyone's like, I guess they're just married now.
I guess they're married now. It's like, help me.
Well, no, Polyphemus is like, oh, I heard him screaming, we should go look for him. And Heracles and Polyphemus, not the Cyclops guy, the other Polyphemus, boring Polyphemus, they go off looking for Hylas and they can't find him. And while they're looking, the rest of the Argonauts leave on the boat because they haven't realized that the others are missing. And then...
They're just trying to ditch Hercules at this point.
Yeah, and they get so far away, and then they're like, oh no, what do we do? And they start fighting amongst themselves about whether they should go back or not. And finally, Glaucus, as in sea god mermaid ate the grass, Glaucus that I talked about forever ago, like rises up out of the ocean and says, hey yo, here's the haps. Hylas is married to a water nymph now, and Heracles has to do his labors, so don't even bother with him. And Polyphemus is gonna do some other random crap, so like just keep going.
He's just helped this water nymph kidnap this guy.
Yeah, it's very disturbing.
It's just
that no one is like, hey, he was like screaming for help. In some accounts, he also was like, they stole his voice and replaced it with an echo so that no one would be able to find him.
no.
It's very frightening.
Oh, that would be worse than when your ears block and you talk and you hear yourself like Darth Vader.
Oh, that's me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
The next place they go past it's another son of Poseidon who's a jerk who wants to fight everyone who goes
What a
past.
surprise.
Right? So new.
It's almost like Poseidon just throws his sons onto islands and they're just like, I guess this is mine now. Frack off, everyone.
So as the ship is going past, he's a boxer, and he demands that everyone who goes past his island has to box him, and he kills them because he's really good at it, and then everyone dies as they're going past.
We hate him.
How
Yeah.
about just keep going past? He's stuck
Right?
on an
Just
island,
don't
then
stop.
You're on a ship.
But the Argo happened to have aboard the Gemini twins, so Castor and Pollux. And Pollux famously was the best boxer alive. So they were like, yeah, we'll fight you, sure. And they have a boxing match and it goes for like ever. It goes for like a full day until finally Pollux punches him in the head and like shatters his skull. Did I say this guy's name? Amycus is the name of the son of Poseidon. And he gets...
Amicus. That sounds like amicable,
It does.
which is wrong.
You're right.
Because he's not.
He is not. So his skull shatters and all of his people are like, what the hell? And charge into the boxing ring to fight Pollux. And so then all the Argonauts charge into the ring to fight. They win because they're the Argonauts and they still haven't got to the fleece yet. Then is the bit with the giant wave. And Typhus, who is their helmsman, manages to steer them out of the way of the giant wave and they don't die, so that's good. But they land on the island where Phineus lives. And Phineus is a blind seer, struck blind because after he was gifted with prophecy by Apollo, he used it to keep telling people all the details of Zeus's plans in complete detail. That makes me like him a bit.
That makes me love him.
And so Zeus was like, how dare you? I strike you blind. And also curses him with harpies. So the harpies... I don't know if it is, because the harpies come and they settle on his island, and anytime anyone tries to eat, they swoop down and they steal the food. So everyone's like starving to death.
At least he's not itchy.
And they poop everywhere. Bird poop.
Oh, okay, that's gross.
Yeah, that's gross.
Oh, I told them about how the bird pooped on my cake the other day.
A bird pooped on your cake?
Oh, was it? It was when you were flying back from America, and I talked to you on the phone, and you're at the airport, and I was having afternoon tea with Dion, and a bird pooped on my cake.
That is awful. Phineas is like, hey, you happen to have the Boreads with you. You know them young soldier warrior guys with wings? Could they maybe fight the harpies that we can't reach because they can fly? And the Boreads are like, I don't know, man. If this is a curse, we don't really want to like get in the way of it. And he's like, I promise you, the gods will not punish you for getting rid of the harpies. And they're like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm
And
pretty
they're
sure.
like-
I'll tell you every single detail.
And they're like, I don't know, man. And he's like, all right, I'll sweeten the pot. I'll give you some sweet prophecies about what's to come in the journey.
I've already got the best prophecies straight from Zeus's mind.
So he's gonna tell the Argonauts
Top end
some
prophecies.
juicy deets about the journey to come and the dangers they'll face in exchange for Zetes and Calais, if they go and chase off the harpies for them. So the Boreads like settle in and get Phineas to set up a feast, and they lie in wait until the harpies come to swoop down and take everyone's food, and then they chase the harpies for like ever. They just keep flying for a really long time. There are some versions of the story where the harpies just die of exhaustion, but then in sort of the main iteration of the tale, they chase them all the way to this island where finally Iris, who's a messenger of the gods, she's the goddess of rainbows, pops up and she's like, hey, yo, so these are agents of Zeus, and we'd really appreciate it if you didn't kill them because Zeus will be mad. If we promise you that the harpies will not go back to the island and mess with Phineas anymore, will you leave them alone? And the Boreads are like, yeah, sure, I guess, we're tired anyway.
And not be pooping on anyone's cake anymore.
Whoa, they do go settle somewhere.
Well, yeah, that's harpies for you.
Yeah.
What are you settling?
Unpleasant. Harpy was my nickname as a child.
Just your voice.
The prophecy that Phineas gives them for chasing away the harpies is that they're gonna have to sail through the clashing rocks, the famous clashing rocks, which are just big, huge rocks that clash.
So like proper booby traps.
Yeah, basically, except that I guess these are magic rocks. They're just huge freaking rocks. Like cliff face rocks, basically. But anytime a ship or anything tries to pass through them, they smash together and they smash it. So yeah, but Phineas is like, here's the deal, yo. I don't know why he says yo now. He didn't before. His advice to them is that the clashing rocks are said to, they'll die. They're also known as the living rocks, and they will die if anything passes through them without being crushed. And so Phineas is like, here's what you do. You get a dove, right? And you release it before the ship, okay? And I mean, here's my advice. I think this will work. If it doesn't work, turn back. But the bird will fly through, the rocks will smash, and then while they're pulling apart, you can sail through them. And so...
Just like, get a dove. Why
You
does
just
it have to
hope
be a
that they're
dove?
only like a meter long.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, right? Or that they move very slowly on their way back, like a crocodile mouth. Crocodiles can only open their mouths really slowly, but they go quah when they go in town. They release the dove and it flies through, and just the tip of its tail gets caught by the rocks. So the dove manages to make it through. And so they're like, oh hell, we gotta go! And they start sailing and sailing, they're like rowing. They need Hercules, but he's not here because Hylas got kidnapped. And so then they just barely make it through, and the rocks smash again on the back of the ship. Because they're the first. I lied about the prophecy. It's only the first ship to make it through without getting crashed that will stop them.
They're just gonna have to use another dove on the way back, aren't they?
No, because
the
now the
ship
ship's made it through, and so the rocks stand still. Forevermore.
So even though the butt
Yeah,
of it
because it
got
was only
taken-
just the butt, so I guess no one died. Maybe it needs blood to continue its
That
magic.
must satiate.
Then some more boring stuff happens, and then Typhus, who was the helmsman, dies because he gets sick. Idmus, who was one of the multiple psychics aboard the ship, dies, and it's like, did we really need him? They get replaced by Anchias, who's another son of Poseidon, but like one of the hero kinds. And then Mopsus, my favorite psychic of all, Mopsus the Magnificent, replaces Idmus as the ship's psychic, even though they don't need one because they've already got several, and they have a psychic ship, so it's like... They briefly touch down near where the Amazons live, but Heracles has just ticked them all off, and may or may not have killed their queen. So they're like, oh, we better leave pretty quick. And then they stop off on the island of Ares, and there are these birds of Ares there who can shoot their feathers like arrows, like little, little machine gun birds. And so they're like, yeah, I guess we'll deal with these for you to the locals. And one of the locals was there when Heracles scared off the Stymphalian birds with rattles that time. So he gives them all the bright idea to treat them like magpies. And so they all just run in begging their shields to scare all the birds away.
If it works on magpies,
yeah.
it works on every
I
time.
can only imagine that their bronze helmets had zip ties.
Big googly eyes on the
Anyone got any ice cream containers?
Perfect. But they're all just like, ah,
We've got bronze helmets. We need plastic containers.
What's the bet these birds berries were just magpies? Just ancient magpies.
Ancient magpies.
It was springtime. They were protecting nests.
Swoopy boys are scary.
There's like a teeny little addendum that Phineas threw into his prophecy for free where he's like, also, P.S., y'all might want to just stop off on this extra little strip of island on your way through because there are some people who can help you. After they've dealt with the birds on this island, they find the sons of Phrixus, who... He's...
Oh, on the sheep!
The sheep!
The sheep!
The sheep!
Oh, the sheep saved them and they killed the sheep. Yeah.
Yes. So Phrixus, who had settled in Colchis, his sons tried to sail from Colchis back to Greece at some point, but were shipwrecked on this island. And so then Jason's like, hey, who are you? And they're like, we're the sons of Phrixus. And he's like, oh, Dad? And they're like, yeah, Dad. And so he's like, you guys must have like insider knowledge on how Colchis works and can help us deal with this like paranoid king of Colchis. And they're like, yeah, we'll come. Because we're shipwrecked here, and really, this
we
isn't
really
like
need
fun.
a lift, bro.
And so then they stopped one final time at the mouth of the river that would lead to the land of Colchis, and that's where we're going to stop for today. It is so exciting.
Alexander the Great made a boat out of rocks.
Okay.
People to the moon.
That's true also, and those were astronauts. Email this to your grandma. Bye. You have to have the last laugh, don't you?
I do.
Haha.